This is Beaty-Coffey of the Ministry of Uncover No More. I've said this recently, and I'm going to have to say it again because it is my privilege to say my worlds are cascading together as opposed to colliding at this point. And cascading is like a waterfall. Cascading is like confetti at a birthday party when you say happy birthday and maybe do some poppers or whatever, and it's all confetti in the air. Cascading is the landscape as you're swinging. It cascades before you. I love to swing as part of exercise, and it's really easy on all my joints. And we are cleaning up our backyard, and I'm going to be gardening. And one thing I would like, because I'm just not getting out very much, is just an adult swing out back, because I will swing as many days as possible. It just cleanses my soul. If you want the honest truth, I should have a sandbox with this swing. I love to build with sand, but I'm going to forgo that desire. But I have told some people, when grandchildren show up, if they show up, or other people's children, one of those little boxes where we have a space for it, and we're going to actually eventually put a fence around our back porch so that the dogs can't pee on some of our things because they tend to pee on stuff, particularly even the porch, and it smells. So we're trying to fix that, and it's just got to go in stages. So anyway, cascading like you're swinging. Picture yourself swinging, and the landscape around you just cascades up and down, up and down. That's what's happening in my life now, and this is one of my in real life journals. But I have probably no less than 8 to 10 journals of pagan circles, magic, meaning using runes and cards to read the intent for me as a person. I've met enough men in different places to know which ones know who I am, as far as my past lives, as far as being an immortal. You have to understand, when I say that as an archangel in Fae Tale named Tara, that means I'm more in the Buddhist religion, in the Asian world, and in the Hindu world. As a Christian, I have an almost 50-year Christian life on the earth now, and that's where this journal is coming from. And so that's the kind of cascading I'm talking about, as opposed to colliding, people fighting around me because we couldn't get unity in different mindsets. But universalism continues to come forth, and what my life exemplifies and will continue to exemplify, all glory to unseen goddess. Neither male nor female is what I just said. The Godfather, Godmother, Godfather figure of paradise, hell, heaven, because here's the thing about, let me give you a little snapshot here. The King of Kings, Jesus Christ, died and arose. We know he went down to hell for 3 days. We know that because he said so. Now, did they see him go down to hell? No, that's called Fae Tale in this day and age. He's never been to hell since. You have to go look at the Psalms to understand how Godfather, Godmother stays in hell. And so, like in a lot of my allegory from my past Christian life, that was all destroyed the very month Donald Trump, the criminal, was put in the White House, and that is not a coincidence. There's a whole bunch of us got hit nationwide for that to have happened. I'm one of them. They can tell you if they're one of them. Believe them if they tell you that. by January of 2017, I was hitting rock bottom in some things. It'll be some of us that are spiritualists. It'll be some of us that are intellectualists. It'll be some of us that have transferred over to agnostic, atheist, or whatever, but admit that we had a past religious life in Christianity or Catholicism, that we still love the people, but the ways and means are anathema to us. Okay, that's the kind of people that I'm talking about here. Now, why are you going into this depth of an introduction, Kara? Because I'm reading letters that Robert Browning and Elizabeth Barrett wrote to each other, and I'm applying magic. That means I'm applying runestones and spirit animal tarot. And what that does is help people think about relationships in a different way than you were drug up being required to do. Parents have to be strict. And I think I've got some kids who haven't actually admitted that. We don't have any other way. This society is so fucked up. You have to do something to teach your children how to set boundaries and whatnot. And that's with sex. That's with medications, drugs, weed, media, social media, TV, media, gaming. God have mercy. God have mercy. It is not easy being a parent. We get judged, and judged again. We rarely get nurtured. Parents rarely get nurtured in this day and age. And if you've been a Christian like I have been, that means you're in a girl. Girls are very controlled still in our society. If we don't mind our P's and Q's, we're going to get in trouble one way or another with other adults who make us feel like pieces of shit. That's why you see a lot of women going to school and stuff instead of doing the stay-at-home mom like me, that's what I'm about to bring out. Because Robert Browning is very much in love with an invalid. She's stuck. And what I'm about to show you is a man who is highly educated property owner who realized late in life, I love this woman. And he was having to assure her, I'm not going anywhere. You have to understand what her dad was like. My children have said, we know you were mentally abused. And I rail at that because I was well cared for by my dad. Curtis and I have a good living. Yet there are parts of those relationships that I don't really want to talk about because I don't want to be negative. I'm the only person that I know that openly admits, I just asked Curtis to forgive me because we had a lovely time last night somewhere, but we had to have some difficult conversations. I am always the person. I have twice in my life, 3 times in my life, 3 literal times, but I do this all the time. I apologize on YouTube. I apologize to my therapist. I apologize to my children when I can. I apologize to Curtis because I don't like the negativity that is spinning out. Well, if you're somebody who has had your inheritance taken away from you and has had people hide things and called it protection, and particularly white men will do that, it's just second nature to them to just barrel in and protect everything and not at all admit that they were being protected by a lot of women in their lives. And I don't really want to be negative, but that happened to me, and it's not easy for Curtis, particularly at this point in his life, to drop that. But he's been a Christian only slightly less time than me, so it makes sense that men like the controlled atmosphere that they can produce in the Christian world. It makes sense, but it is not good for the family. It is codependency and idolatry in a way that most Christians don't want to admit. Okay, so that's my introduction. I'm going to switch gears because I'm going to talk about love. Okay? And I'm going to talk about a couple that were there for each other regardless of marriage status and all of that. And what this is, what I'm about to talk to you about, is very clearly in the New Testament. And I probably should add this chapter in, so I will make mental note. because this is going on my poetry blog, and it is going there because I am in the poetry book for Elizabeth Barrett and Robert Browning. And I mean, even in this passage I'm about to share, Robert Browning has a poem called Paracelsus, and he was scorned for it, and he talks about it. And I looked it up. It's like, oh my God, I definitely want to go through that. So it's just going to take time, because this is a thick book, and I need to thoroughly enjoy this book. This is huge. So, here we are. And I want it understood, and I'm going to have to say this over and over. I want it understood that when I talk about this love, it is not instinctively about a husband and wife. And particularly if you're in the Christian world, you need to think outside your idolatrous box. Christianity, Catholicism. Pagans, by and large, don't have to do this. Pagans have to watch it. They get sexually deviant. I'm not for that either. That's got lifestyle things in it. It's not good for children. There is a balance in sexuality. This country doesn't have it. Too much power playing goes on. How many women have you heard that to climb up the corporate ladder, they had to have sex with individuals who were white men and leaders with lots of money? Okay, so let's just not even go there. Objectification of women is a fact in our country. Coming against it is equally necessary for our daughters, for ourselves. Just the very fact that I'm not college educated, I feel like a piece of shit on a regular basis. Okay? I was Robert Browning. I had my property taken from me. I'm an heiress. The property is, the houses aren't necessarily worth much, but the property itself is $500,000 property. People saw fit to take it from me. That's theft. It's because I'm a woman. That's what happened to me. And whether anybody agrees with that or not, that's the fucking facts, because this country's a fucking mess. Now, I don't want to talk about that, because I had something beautiful to write in this part of the journal at the same time, which is my family's life. At the same time, I've got this whole other family too, and they're all there on Twitter. And we're there for each other. And here's what I want to read out of my journal, because I've been dealing with this for years, okay? I've been dealing with this for years. Before I read this selection from Robert Browning and then make my point, because it's just a point from the old life, and I've been gossiped about. So I'm having to forgive a lot of people for gossip that I just basically had to barrel through and say, no, love never fails, so y'all get over it. Two things. Enmity. If you go look it up in the Bible, it's there, because in Jewish culture, but it's in every culture. There's enmity between daughters and mothers, and between daughters-in-laws and mothers-in-laws. And I have been caught in the middle so much. That's part of what destroyed my life. I'm forgiving it all. I can't blame people. When there is a curse on something, yes, they have to accept some responsibility, and I have to say there's people in my life that need to improve their skills about accepting responsibility for what they actually did to somebody like me. But that aside, I know the love is still there, and I understand why the things that happened. I get it. Time is a mystery in how it weaves our lives together, isn't it? Yes, it is. That's where Oracle is helpful. I will tell you that. But all of that aside, and with my forgiveness journey where it is, we women have a huge, huge issue to deal with, and it's called enmity. And it's probably because allegorically, poetically, in the book of Genesis, we accepted the fruit from the serpent kind of shit. But that's just a story. People have taken it too literally, and it's done damage, at least in the Christian world of America, since 1950. That's all I can tell you right now. I am finished dealing with that, and here's how I said it. So the chasm of death my mother's family held over me only a little more strongly than my mother-in-law, Mrs. Mellor-Coffey, my mother-in-law, is wholly broken. I can say that today. And then I said, enmity is hell to be sure. It is a pattern we can be faithful to. In other words, I was faithful in all the relationships. They were faithful to me. That didn't mean it was always pretty on the underside of what I'm talking about. And my biggest change is to stop trying with family relationships. They can come to me. They can start inviting me. And that is the hardest thing for me to do. I keep trying to open the doors. And when you're me, when you've had the kind of life that this mother has had, your greatest fear is going to be realized. People are going to just say no, continue to say no to you. In our society, what I'm telling you is I've learned to become a stoic. I've learned to not care anymore, that some people, even some that I grew in my body, need to be set free to not have anything to do with me. And I've been actually doing that, setting that up for years, talking past the Christian religion that forced us all to be how we were. So I've done the work for it. It's why I cried so much. Because nobody reaches me here. Nobody reaches me here. Nobody. I am not kidding you. And so I'm going to read Robert Browning's there's some points here, but you're going to have to do some mental exercise with me, America. This isn't about marriage, it's about marriage. This kind of setting thought process needs to be thought through as a parent, as a child who's an adult. And you do need to go back, and I need to go back, and we need to keep mending bridges as best as we can. Because part of what I said here, I said also, I can safely say I now know what too much water under that horrific bridge has passed by, and that water was flowing bitter. So, I'm basically begging Americans who are mature like me to become Moses and Zipporah, because we got some bitter water. We got some bitter water to take care of, and that's going to take years. And I welcome the process, but I don't know how many people actually have the skills to do that, because you can't get this in a school. It's the school of life. It's your journey. So I share all of that before I share from a book, Letters. This is not the poetry. I'm working on one of Robert Browning's poems where he channels another gentleman. It's so amazingly incredible. So this letter was to Elizabeth Barrett. They were discussing their dating had to be undercover to a large degree. So this is Robert Browning to Elizabeth Barrett, September 16th, 1845. And I've already done two pages of art on some of this. So I'll let you see, because I've done artwork a couple of 3 times right here. I was listening to Flora Cash earlier this year. Here's the 2 words I'm going to tell you the definition of before I read this. Ostentatiously is pretentious, showy. And then magnanimous is forgiving toward a rival. And see, enmity has to do with rivalry. And women, particularly, I think women need to take that over and slay, as it were, the dragon of rivalry among their families, among their co-workers. We need to require the dragon of rivalry to take a back seat. Rivalry belongs on the soccer and football field. They're being paid millions of dollars. We're just trying to pay our bills. We're trying to get our families to thrive. And enmity and rivalry, competition does not belong in a home front. And it doesn't belong in a church front. And it doesn't belong in a small group. And it doesn't belong in so many relationships. But I can tell you right now, point blank, it's there. The cultishness breeds rivalry, okay? And ostentatious behavior. Okay, so one final word on the other matters, the quote-unquote worldly matters, because her father was a man of property, and so is Robert Browning. And I want you to see what he admits about predestination. He is an incredible predestination executive, Robert Browning is, because he explains it with such humility that it blows me away, okay? But it takes an extremely humble man to admit the kind of love that he has for this woman after he was a confirmed bachelor, and I get it. I get it. Love is messy, takes too much time, and what the fuck was I doing having such a large family is sometimes what I say in this day, right now, in my life. And I was a woman of property, so I do kind of know what I'm talking about here. If you can just broaden your fucking minds, America, and get over your behaviors that are just not kind. I've been on the butt end of unkindness for years. Controlled, been the one to come in and say, no, love never fails. No, love never fails. Now I'm the chick, the broad, the whore, the whatever the fuck you want to call me that says hope is trashy. Forget it. Forget it. But one thing you can learn from the Bible is enmity among women. You can learn about that. Okay, one final word on the other matters, the worldly matters. I shall own I alluded to them rather ostentatiously because that would be the one poor sacrifice I could make you. One I would cheerfully make, but a sacrifice, and the only one. This careless, quote-unquote, sweet habitude of living, this absolute independence of mine, which, if I had it not, my heart would starve and die for, I feel, and which I have fought so many good battles to preserve. For that has happened, too. And my son Patrick, born on my birthday, is preserving our heritage on that property. So I understand this as well, okay? This light, rational life I lead, and know so well that I lead, this I could give up for nothing less than what you know. But I would give it up, not for you merely, but for those whose disappointment might react on you. And I should break no promise to myself. The money getting would not be for the sake of it, the labor not for that which is not. Indeed, the necessity of doing this, if at all, now, was one of the reasons which make me go on to that last request of all. At once, one must not be too old, they say, to begin their ways. They may say that. I say, fuck it. But in spite of all of the babble, I feel sure that whenever I make up my mind to that, I can be rich enough and to spare, because along with what you have thought genius in me is certainly talent, what the world recognizes as such, and I have tried it in various ways just to be sure that I was a little magnanimous in never intending to use it. It is probably true he did have to get up his inheritance because they spent 15 years elsewhere, if I'm not correct. Thus, in more than one of the reviews and newspapers that laughed my Paracelsus to scorn 10 years ago, in the same column often of these reviews would follow a most laudatory notice of an elementary French book on a new plan, which I, quote-unquote, did for my old French master and be published. That was really a useful work. So it's interesting to me that I feel we have the same problem today that they were having back then. And that problem is, here I am, most unlearned, and yet I am telling you I am going to take a fine-tooth comb with my artwork and my bookmaking and my oracle through this book because... And it's the same thing with J.R.R. Tolkien's The Silmarillion. I haven't even finished listening to the interviews of that man. He is so highly intelligent, but that's what I crave. That's what I crave. Social media is cheap intelligence. Getting an online degree isn't. Self-study, like in high school, is worthwhile. Anything to get your brain to start working. But what you do in your spare time is what I'm talking about. And just like with Curtis and I have gotten some healing, and he was excited about, as I am I, we're going to start buying the Sunday paper once a week. And just reading it and maybe discussing this or that, but just reading the paper instead of using our devices. A paper a week is not too expensive to just get our heads away from the screens. And it's amazing what it will do for your mental aptitude and your mental acuity. And that I'm sitting here talking to you around trees and people is pagan, flat out, necessity. But I can be a pagan, agnostic, or atheist. When I walk into church tomorrow, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in the God that they teach about. It's too male chauvinistic by far. I have immortals on Twitter that I am privileged to watch that would agree with me. They're men. They have penises. Okay. That was really unuseful work, so that when the only obstacle is only that there is so much per annum to be producible, you will tell me. After all, it would be unfair in me not to confess that this was always intended to be my own single stipulation, an objection which I could see certainly, but meant to treat myself to the little luxury of removing. So now, dearest, let me once think of that, and of you as my own, my dearest. This once, dearest. I have done with words for the present. I will wait. God bless you and reward you. I kiss your hands now. This is my comfort, that if you accept my feelings as all but unexpressed now, more and more will become spoken, or understood, that is. We both live on. You will know better what it was, how much and manifold what one little word had to give out. And what's interesting is, I spontaneously clasped my daughter-in-law's hands and kissed them. She is, I get to see her a lot, and she is healing from some things. And so I'm actually Robert Browning today, and it's my love is being expressed in many different zones, men and women. Okay, so what I want to say about money making in the United States of America is there is too much power put in who makes the money. I have had children having to come to me because of the primary money makers in our family, and they were being made to feel less, and the others didn't even know it. And so that's really a hard thing, I think, in a lot of families. It is very true in this day and age that, like I just retweeted from somebody, that there should be different things in public schools, high schools. Like there should be trade school. And we're all retweeting it and saying, yes, yes, yes. There is an elitist group, and they're in the federal government and the grand old party that intend on belittling us. And sadly, a lot of the Christian rhetoric is still belittling people. Primarily women and their children. Very controlling. And they like control, and that makes sense, doesn't it? What our responsibility is as truly strong people who have no desire to be controlled or have control is to continue to be faithful, in my personal opinion, and show them, yeah, you don't have the control you used to have, but I am not into misusing it like you want to do in my life. I'm not talking about any specific people in my life here. I'm talking globally, but it is happening. And it is the only way to, if you want to think about the book of Genesis, because it is a book that does lend some understanding to what actually happened in the creating of the me and you that are here today. I told somebody I'm now to the point in my line of sight. I used to be a 6,000-year creationist, evolutionist kind of thing. No, it's every day of creation is probably hundred thousands, like 500,000 years, or 7 million each day of creation. That's eternity's forever to me. So that's how that goes for me. Okay, this is Beaty-Coffey of the Ministry of Uncover No More. I want America to know I'm not willing to call you the United States until you codify Roe versus Wade across all 50 states, and I may tarry. I'm not willing to call you the United States until you give us universal health care, because I really do think that universal health care will solve a lot of things that you don't want solved as Republicans. You're showing your ass so bad right now. God damn. Okay? Goddess damn. That's anathema. You're racist. You're sexist. You're elitist. You don't want universalism at all, and you are anathema to many of us, but we still want to love our enemies, and we are turning the other cheek. I want you to know that, grand old party. Okay. Have a nice weekend, y'all, even Republicans.